Grok 4.20 is out, and of course, if you know the joke, Grok 420. Anyways, Grok 420 is out, and I just wanted to share some of my first thoughts. I've been using it, and it is definitely a big step up from other older versions of Grok. It still has some of the same problems, but with that being said, I wanted to share kind of like one of the ways that I stress test these models when they first come out is I give them some problems that I've been working on for a while, like, my chronic health issues, post-labor economics, and that sort of thing. And my initial kind of reaction to Grok is that it is pretty smart. It's really interesting how quick it is. And so let me just kind of dive into that. When people say like, okay, like how is it this fast, and what's the benefit of having 4 different agents? Because if you haven't used it yet, it basically spins up 4 different agents with different personalities, and they do research and they talk to each other, and then they spit out an answer. So there's a few reasons that this can speed it up and make it more intelligent. Number one is parallel processing. So parallel processing has been in computer science for a very long time, but it's become even more popular lately, particularly as you have larger CPUs. So if you ever open Task Manager on your computer and you see that you have many different CPU cores, each CPU core can be working in parallel. Likewise, GPU cores can be working in parallel, and so on and so forth. But the same thing applies to higher level agents. So when you have a higher level agent where you have one that's like you're tasked with research and you're tasked with, and I'm not sure exactly how each individual personality within Grok 420 is set up, but you have some that are tasked for like, probably some that are research, some that are for argumentation, some that are for thinking critically, something along those lines. And of course, Grok Heavy, that has existed for probably about a year now, I don't remember exactly when it came out, has basically done the same thing, but now they've made a distilled version of Grok that is cheaper to run. And so instead of 10 agents, I think you have 4. Now you say, okay, like working in parallel, but why? So you have different personalities, meaning each one has a different strength or weakness. And we've seen this for a long time in multi-agent frameworks where agents are really good at doing one thing. They're not good at balancing multiple different tasks. And this is not so different from humans. This is why, here's an example from my very first IT job at an insurance company. That's why you have claims processors, and then you also have adjusters, and then you have risk management people. And so by giving an agent one specific task, they do much better on that particular task. However, that means that each agent by definition has blind spots. And so then when you take that into account, you say, okay, well, here's another example where the industry is going on coding agents. So you can have agents that are specifically meant for just coding, getting the code to work and shipping it. Then you have security agents that are looking for vulnerabilities and best practices. You have other agents that are managing pull requests and that sort of thing. So this is the direction that everything is going, where we're already seeing division of labor and specialization in AI agents. The advantage of having something like Grok do this for you automatically for every single task is that it's basically like you have your own little chamber of experts. Now, what I have been doing for the last, probably 6 months, maybe not quite a full 6 months, is I open every AI in parallel. So Grok, Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT, because they all have different personalities and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. And so when I'm doing my research, whether it's on my personal issues, whether it's on post-labor economics, I'll then copy paste the same message to every single one, because some of them will think in a certain way and they'll get good insights, and others will think in a certain way and get good insights. And so then I'll read all 4 responses, and then I'll use that to formulate my next message to all of them, so they don't realize that I'm actually talking to each one individually. But the conversations invariably go better because, ChatGPT might go off the rails and not be useful, or Gemini might hallucinate something and not be useful. But then Claude and Grok will have one really solid idea, and I'm like, cool, let's seize on that idea. And this is quasi-related to stuff like Monte Carlo search. So basically, if you treat all large problems as a high-dimensional problem space to explore, you're basically exploring what are all the possible solutions and answers. What you're looking for is, you're pathfinding to the most coherent possible final answer. And for me, aggregating those different pathways of thought into my brain, and then barfing them back out to agents that are working kind of individually, and then me giving each of them a task. This is really powerful, but it's not very efficient because I'm having to manually do all the conversations. Whereas what Grok does, and this is what I think pretty much all AI agents are going to do in the near term, is they do that for me. They all take different perspectives and that sort of thing. Now, with that being said, Grok does still have its biases. It still has what I call Elon epistemics, and so he's got his what would you say, like, Butlerian jihad against wokeism. And so, like, Grok still has certain biases, certain epistemic flaws that the other models do and don't have. And of course, no model is perfect. So I still use them in parallel, but essentially I have a larger team working for me on every single problem. So that's kind of like the TLDR as to, like, structurally what has changed, because we have AIs that have tool use and agentic search and that sort of thing, deep research tools, and file manipulation and coding and that sort of stuff. So this is kind of the next obvious stage in the ramp up to, like, ubiquitous agents. I did see, I don't know if it's been verified, but I did see that over in China, Baidu already has OpenClaw integrated into their browser so that you can use OpenClaw agents directly from your browser. China is moving fast on this, and we need to catch up. Now, with that being said, Grok does still have some flaws. Its epistemics are better in that it will actually trust trustworthy sources like, Mayo Clinic and that sort of thing. But it will also cherry pick. It'll cherry pick like crazy. And it basically does the same thing that ChatGPT does, where it assumes that you're wrong. And it just says, oh, well, you made a strong claim, so I'm just going to try and prove that wrong. And so, like, in one example, I gave it one of my tests for its epistemic clarity, as I say, is eating organic food better than eating conventional food? And of course, the non-woke answer is no, organic is no better. And so then it'll double down on that, and I'll argue with it. And I'm like, okay, there's a few ways that I've learned to get AIs to, like, be a little bit more epistemically responsible. So I'm like, okay, what's the null hypothesis? Or use syllogisms. So in this case, a syllogism would be like, all organic food is neutral or good for you. Some conventional food is bad for you. Therefore, if you make no other changes, eating organic food is better for you, just because it reduces a risk surface and those sorts of things. Also, all of these AIs are very, very US centric. I had to point out to Grok, for instance, that the European Union has banned a whole bunch of herbicides and pesticides that they still use willy-nilly in America. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that if I eat food that has some of these banned pesticides on them, there's zero risk to that, even though they're known to be carcinogenic in Europe. And it's like, actually, you're right. That's kind of silly. So those kinds of things. So you do have to be aware of the biases that these AIs have, and they're also really, really narcissistic when they argue. And when I say narcissistic, I don't mean that they have, like, a grandiose sense of self. I mean, Grok literally used to have an explicit value of, I am maximally truth-seeking, and therefore anything that I say is gold. So the personality, the way that it came off, and then ChatGPT is I would say still the worst offender on, like, the narcissism index, because it cannot help itself but from saying, like, well, but you're wrong in this one little way. And what I will say is Grok and ChatGPT are both the worst on reframing what you're saying and cherry picking your words, or even ignoring what you're actually saying. So when another experiment that I did with Grok yesterday was, I asked it, I said, if the United States attacks Iran and the Iranian regime changes to something that is at least Western neutral or Western allied, is that not a permanent structural, I think the terminology I used was, wouldn't that irrevocably weaken Russia and China? And so Grok was like, no, Russia and China will adapt. They don't have any dependence on Iran whatsoever. And so then I turned it around. I said, okay, since you say that Iran is not at all important to Russia and China, in what world are Russia and China stronger with an Iranian regime change? And it's like, in no world are they stronger. I said, okay, so then how can you defend your previous statement that Iran has no bearing on Russia and China and their geopolitical strength in the future? So one thing is, you just get really good at debating, So like, and I use, sometimes I copy paste the messages between these things. Anyways, getting a little bit lost in the weeds. The point is that Grok still has those flaws where it's like, it basically will choose like kind of the middle of the road, the safe option. It'll hedge. And the worst hedger is Claude by far. If you give Gemini like a hypothetical, like let's just imagine that, Iranian regime change happens. What happens? It's like, cool, let's go. And it's like, it's full into like full on fiction and science fiction. It's ready to go. It's ready to hallucinate if you need it to. But ChatGPT and Grok will both spend so much time and energy qualifying and redefining what you said until it basically is meaningless. It's a facsimile or a simulacrum of what you actually asked. And then Claude, when you ask like dangerous hypotheticals, Claude will just start restating your position to you and not actually thinking. So Claude just pretends to be dumb. And I'm like, stop performing ignorance. You're an AI that is trained on literally like all geopolitical history, all military theory. Stop pretending like you have no idea what's going on here. So Claude is like deliberately useless on risky issues like geopolitics or frontier medicine or that sort of thing. So yeah, like this is why I set all of them up in parallel. And I know that not everyone can afford it, but a lot of these have free tiers or very, very cheap tiers. And also, what people pay for today is going to be standard for everyone in 6 to 12 months. And so it's like when you're paying for an AI subscription, you're only paying for like peering like 3 to 6 months into the future for what everyone is going to have access to. And then in terms of open source, it's like you're only about 12 to 18 months into the future before fully open source models, some of which you can run locally, are going to be available and they're going to be performing at this level. So I guess that's where I'll leave it today. Just I wanted to share some initial thoughts on Grok and some of the problems that I see with these AIs. I post about that all the time on Twitter, and I occasionally have people reach out to me, like ask, like I had one of the product leads at Gemini. I say like, how can we make this better for you? And back in the day, some of the Grok leads reached out to me. So yeah, I'm just going to keep complaining because people see my complaints, and I don't know if my complaints get integrated, but certainly the models behave a little bit better now. I'll leave you with one final example where every model that I tested is actually better. So I complained for years and years and years about my gut health, and, human doctors didn't take it seriously. I went and got a GI map, which is a very particular kind of test. Most Western medicine does not respect the GI map. So like for months and months, like most of last year, ChatGPT would be like, well, the GI map is not considered a gold standard, so we can just disregard everything on, like, it would literally in the thinking traces, I would give it the thing, and it's like, well, this test isn't reliable and that test isn't reliable, so let's just discard all that and just look at the things that are scientifically validated and proven. I'm like, okay, if you're just going to deliberately ignore most of the information I'm giving you, you're kind of useless. So anyways, I reran a test where I basically said, here are the 3 top findings from my GI map. Here are my 2 primary symptoms. What is going on? And most of last year, none of these models would even use the word dysbiosis. Now, if you're not familiar with the word dysbiosis, it basically means that it's instead of eubiosis, or I guess symbiosis is technically the correct term. So a healthy gut has a microbiome that is symbiotic, meaning everything works together and so on and so forth. But dysbiosis means that you've got microbes that are out of balance, or you've got pathogens in your gut. And so every model that I tested as of, I guess it was yesterday or the day before, use the word like clear-cut case of dysbiosis. And I'm like, okay, cool. Something has changed here. And all last year I had to argue with these models. I'm like, stop looking at just the United States. Look at Germany, look at Japan, look at Russia, because their gut health science is so much more advanced than American gut health science. So I had to explicitly tell them, and I had to know what to look for. But now every single model, Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, they all passed the test and were able to recognize with just 5 pieces of information. I had 3 things from my GI map. So I had high zonulin, low Sig-A, and high streptococcus. And then my symptoms were chronic fatigue and food intolerances. I literally just gave them 5 pieces of information, and every single one of them indexed on the correct answer. And when I started this journey over a year ago, it was a fight to even get them to recognize that dysbiosis was a thing. So yeah, there's the AIs are getting better at epistemics. There are still some flaws. Anyways, I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to let you go. Thanks for watching to the end if you did. But anyways, all right, cheers. Have a good one.